Chef Robert Rhodes, and today we're going to make a brisket, Texas style. And we've got a Packer style brisket here. This is a whole untrimmed brisket. And we are going to trim it up a little bit, take some of this fat off of here. But if you're looking at the brisket, you'll notice the flat portion here, which is called the flat. And you know, when you're picking one out, you want to try to get this as thick as possible and a nice uniform meat. This is the point on this side, the thicker portion, but the more uniform the meat is, the more likely that you're going to you know, get a nice even cooking throughout the whole cooking process. So we are going to start to trim this up a little bit. You know, we're going to probably take about a 1/4 inch of the, cut it down to about a 1/4 inch of fat cap. And you notice here that you know, during the processing, there's a couple of cuts in here, but that's okay. We're just going to start with our boning knife and just trim this down a little bit. Doesn't have to be perfect. We're just trying to get some of this big, thick, excess fat off. And you do want to leave a little bit on there, you know, because that will protect the meat, and a little bit of that fat, you know, will just kind of help keep the meat moist. I don't know if it necessarily melts into it, but it will definitely protect the meat and help keep it moist. So you see we're cutting some of this fat off, leaving some on here, trying to get, you know, between like a, an 1/8 of an inch and a 1/4 of an inch is good. Mainly around this edge portion is where we're trying to get some of this excess fat off. I don't like to leave a lot of fat on them because, you know, that's all going to end up getting cut off anyways, and you're going to lose a lot of your spice rub. And I'm all about the spices. I like to have nice, really well seasoned brisket on both sides. Some people only season one side, but I'm a big proponent of using seasoning all over it, and nice and liberal. So as you're trimming this, you know, the fat's going to kind of vary. You just kind of got to, you know, just follow it around, and every once in a while you'll hit some meat, you know, that you've gone far enough, obviously. And leave a little bit of this fat on there. And it's not about how much you're really taking off, it's how much you're leaving on there. And you know, this one you can kind of see, you know, because of the machine where it cut, it does have about a 1/4 inch. Now don't cut into there if your brisket hasn't already been, you know, whatever. Okay, so we've got this side trimmed up, you know, still keep a decent amount of fat on there, but just trying to, you know, kind of bring some of those bigger chunks off of there. But, you know, don't take too much off. And we're going to flip it over, and there is a big piece of fat here that we want to cut out. This will never render out, so definitely want to take this big pieces off. And some of this too, you can pull some of this off as well. Kind of got to dig in there a little bit to get this this big chunk out. Just use the tip of your knife. See all that thick fat, you know, that'll never cook out, you know, so it's just going to, not going to really add anything. It's just going to take away some of your seasoning. You're going to have to trim that out later. So by removing some of this now, it's going to help the whole cooking process. So kind of dig in there and get a big chunk of this out of there. But still trying to leave that 1/4 inch of fat in there. on this side. Once again, we've got a thicker piece. Try to take some of this off. Dig in there a little bit. Kind of the same on this side with a little bit of this big piece of fat that goes in deep. Just use the tip of your knife and dig some of that out of there. So we've trimmed off, a good portion, that big hunk of fat out here, a big hunk of fat over on this other side, over here, and then on the top, we still got, a decent amount of fat. You just kind of can tell over here, but looking at the side, you always want to trim these whenever they're cold. That fat's going to come off a lot easier. It's already starting to warm up a little bit, and it's just a lot harder to trim whenever it's the fat starts to warm up a little bit. So get them right out of the refrigerator and start working on the butchering side of it, as far as getting some of this extra fat off of there. And once again, still leaving some, but not an excessive amount. So that's about right there where we've got it. And you see what we've taken off here, and you see what we're left with. There's still a lot of good fat on there, and a lot of that's going to add a lot of great flavor, but it's not too much where you're going to lose all your spice whenever you're cutting into it. So that's about it for this portion. Next thing we're going to do is mix up the spice rub, and we're going to rub this down and season it up and get it on the smoker.